2002, and its core mandate has always remained capital investment. This is aligned with our strategic plan, pillar 2 of our strategic plan, which is facilitating the development of affordable rental housing. And this is why we're all here, for the project and development finance. But beyond that, since 2017, our mandate has slowly been transforming into other things that support sustainable human settlements. In terms of pillar 3 of our strategic plan, we support spatial transformation integration, which looks at integrated, inclusive, and sustainable human settlements through our role as an implementing agent for the mega projects, as an implementing agent for our turnkey projects. But beyond that, we've also received 2 new mandates, which are exciting, which support sites and services. And this is to provide livable settlements and secure tenure through upgrading of informal settlements and the rapid land release program. So in a nutshell, that is an overview of what the GPF does. But Palisa is now going to take you guys through the funding programs, which we offer as the GPF, which is part of our core mandate. And she will show you the different programs or products that we offer to the public. Over to you, Palisa. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Simpiwe. Good morning, everybody. My name is Palisa Tlawana, and I am a project analyst at the GPF. I will be taking you through the funding programs that we have. Simpiwe, can you just stop that remote thing? Thank you. So I will be taking you guys through our funding programs. As the GPF, we've got 3 programs, which is the Rental Housing Fund, Student Accommodation Fund, and the Entrepreneur Empowerment Program Fund. The Rental Housing Fund is mostly for your developed property developers who have been in the industry for a bit longer and are more experienced. And the only difference between the Rental Housing Fund and the Entrepreneur Empowerment Fund is that the Entrepreneur Empowerment Fund caters for your new entrants into the property industry and gives a much higher percentage in terms of the funding. So with the Rental Housing Fund, you would get 30% funding, whereas with the Entrepreneur Empowerment Fund, you would get a maximum of 40%. So I would start with the Entrepreneur Empowerment Fund, which caters mainly for 100% HDI holding, and it would give you 40% with a loan term of 20 years. And then our loan pricing in terms of the EEPF, we charge JIBAR plus 0.5% for the first 5 years, and it goes up by 1% for every 5 years. The program caters for obviously your first-time developers. The borrower needs to commit plus minus 5% of the equity of the total, 5% as equity for the total project cost. Obviously, depending on the viability of your project, your equity contribution might differ. So Bantu, can you please mute yourself? So the GPF will commit 40% of the total project cost towards your project, and will also give the developer in an interest-free loan to a maximum of 2 million. 75% of your professionals must have majority of BEE shareholding, and what's nice about the GPF is we can be the only funders if perhaps the developer is requesting anything, is requesting actually 8 million in order to complete the project, then we can do 95% funding. Obviously, that depends on the viability of the project. In terms of the unit sizes, we would accept, as per our investment policy, we would accept a bachelor or studio unit of 25 square meters, 1 bed of 30 square meters, 2 beds of 40, and 3 bedrooms of 55 square meters. The benefits of the EPF is that it is aimed at first-time developers. It's differential interest rates, and then another nice thing about it is the 2 million interest fee that you get with a 5 years moratorium. You get a more hands-on approach from the GPF from cradle to grave, and the intention is to capacitate new developers. To date, the program has 45 active participants, and amongst that 45, we've got 26 males, 19 females, and 14 of those participants are of youth. The aim is to have more females and youth being funded in all our funding programs. Now we're going to move on to the rental housing fund. With the rental housing fund, we've got more conservative or maybe stricter restrictions, where we would say we do not fund if you've got less than 51% shareholding. And if you have between 51 and 99%, we will give you 25%, and between 15 to 20 years loan term. And if you've got 100% HDI shareholding, we will give you 30% with a 20-year loan term. And in the rental housing fund, the developer or the borrower would need to contribute a minimum of 10%. Obviously, that's dependent on your cash flows and the viability of the project. And then the loan term would highly depend on the BE shareholding. The loan pricing is also similar to the EPF, where you for the first 5 years, you'd get JIBAR plus 0.5, and then it would go up for every 5 years by 1%. The square meterage allowance is still the same as the EPF. Like I said in the beginning, the only difference is the funding commitment from the GPF. When it comes to student accommodation, the same restrictions in terms of the shareholding would still apply, but the only difference is that the interest rates are a bit higher in the student accommodation. In the allowable minimum size per unit would have 9 square meters for a single room and 14 square meters for a double room. So with the student accommodation, in terms of the rentals, we are highly guided by what the National Student Financial Aid gives to their students. So yeah, we are guided by that. And then in terms of the radius of how far your accommodation should be from the institution, we go in accordance to the guidelines from the basic higher education, which is your accommodation must be within 10-kilometer radius of the targeted tertiary institution. And if it's more than that, then within your costings and all that, you need to submit a transportation plan, which actually states how the students will be transported from their place of residence to the institution. GPF only funds projects in Gauteng, and majority of GPF's successful projects are located in Johannesburg CBD, Randburg, Pretoria, and Kempton Park. We have plus minus 3 clients who have completed second projects funded by the GPF. And apart from the above mentioned funding programs, GEPF has also had projects that they've played a role in terms of social housing. And some of the 2 which are completed and 1 which is still under construction. And then this slide shows some of
for that light, I don't know. Let's go to the slide now.
Some of the GEPF projects that have been completed. This is a project in Bronkhorstspruit, and this one is a project in Primrose, Germiston, and this is one in Johannesburg's CBD. When submitting your application, you would have to submit a comprehensive business plan that is accompanied by your geotech if the land is vacant, or a structural engineering report if perhaps the land already has a structure on it. You would need to submit land which already has the appropriate which has the appropriate land rights, which means you would have applied, if you still need to apply for rezoning from Res 1 to residential 4 or 3, you would have to come with us or that approval. You would need to submit elemental cost estimates or a bill of quantities, company document, or CIPC document. You need to have plans, proof of bulk, and you would also need to come to us at least having an indication of who your senior funder would be, because we are junior funders and we only fund either 30% if you're doing student accommodation or rental housing, or 40% if you're doing a project under the EEPF. So we do not fund 100%. So you would need to come in with a senior funder who will come in to cover the balance of the funds that you require from us. And then you'll also submit to us company profiles of your professional team. When you ask for information with regards to funding, we normally send you our guidelines, which will also actually state how a comprehensive business plan should be and what is expected in a comprehensive business plan, and also all the other documentation that need to accompany your application. If you wish to submit an application, you can contact the listed people on this slide. It's myself, Palesa, and Nontlantla Mbongo, and Ms. Petile Khoza. And that's the end of our presentation. I'm willing to take questions. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, Palesa.
Palesa. Oh.
I don't know if you've seen on the chat group, there are a number of questions there on the chat. It's Lebo here. I don't know if you're able to see some of the questions.
Okay, I've opened the chat. I'm trying to go through them.
I think a couple of them was to explain around JIBA, what that means. And also around, just one more on my side. You mentioned a senior funder. Will that be like an ABSA bank, for example? Thanks.
Thank you, Lebu, and thank you, Palesa and Simpue, for the presentation that's straight to the point. You can see that there's lots of questions that are coming through. And yeah, maybe let's just start on the issue of JIBA. Maybe when you're explaining JIBA, can you just explain how does it relate to the interest rates that we are used to? Is it less? Is it more? Is there a way of comparing it to the interest rate as we know it?
Okay, so with regards to the JIBA rate, JIBA means Johannesburg Interbank Average Rate. It is lower than prime. It fluctuates on a daily or on a monthly, but it is definitely lower than prime. So currently our rates at JIBA, we charge, I think it's 5.5%.
5.5%.
Yes.
Can you just go, as we speak, can you just go to, and as you're answering other questions, can you just go back to the presentation about the rental, the different products that you have? Maybe let's leave it there whilst we're talking about it.
Dumiso,
I just want
just
yes,
before of that JIBA, you will see that our interest rates are linked to JIBA and not the prime lending rate. It is intentionally done so because, as Palisa had mentioned in the beginning of a presentation, we are trying to empower people to get into the property development space. Remember, as the GPF, we are a trust, so we are not profit driven, but we are more driven to make an impact in the society. So that is why our interest rates are linked to JIBA, which is the Johannesburg which is the rate that the banks use to loan each other money, or it's the interbank rate, exchange rate. So it's I just wanted to mention that it's intentionally done so to promote market entrance into the market of property development. And it is always lower than prime.
Okay, thanks, Mpiwe. Can you just explain the funding? At some point, I thought we saying GPF can finance 100%, but then Palisa says, no, it won't finance 100%, you need a senior funder. Whilst answering that question, also just talk about the senior funder, like Lebu has asked, whether a senior funder, can you bring any other funder into the mix, like a bank or another private institution that does property financing?
Okay, so in terms of a senior funder, it can be anyone else who's willing to cover the balance. If, let's say, GPF is not the only funder where you only require 8 million from us. So your senior funder, if let's say your project is only giving you 40% of the total project cost, so you would need someone to come in at 55%, and then obviously you would come in at that minimum of 5% equity. I don't know if I'm answering Lebu's question.
Maybe if I can support what Palisa is saying, traditional funding would have equity, mezzanine funding or junior funding, and then a senior funding portion. So what we are basically saying is the GPF facilitates a junior funding role in all our funding, unless the project is of a value of 8 million rand or less, then we can fund the entire project. But anything more than that would require a senior funder, where depending on the program you're in, we can give up to a maximum of 40% of the funding required.
So regardless of you getting that 8 million from us, there is still that portion of equity that you still need to contribute. So basically that's the risk that you are actually willing to take for your project.
Okay. Now, thank you. Let me see if there are questions. Please just raise your hands. If anyone wants to ask a question, please raise your hand and then I will acknowledge you, then you can ask.
Just for clarity, hi guys.
Yes. So
yes,
who's that?
It's Manelis.
Okay, Manelis, go through.
Yes. No, I just want to confirm what Palisa just said. So or what you guys just said. So you're saying if the project is below 8 million and less, you can fund the entire project 100%. Is that correct? And then anything above 8 million, that's when it's percentage driven.
No, we do not fund 100%. That's what I was saying to you. Regardless of whether you getting 8 million from us, you will still need to bring in equity, which is the risk that you are willing to take on your project. So we do not do 100% funding. That's why on the slide it says 95%, and you would still come in with that minimum 5% based, well, that would be dependent on the viability of your project. So if your project does not work at 5%, it does not produce the positive cash flows that we require when we model on our financial model, then you would be required to contribute more than 5%.
Okay, thanks, Palisa. I think that's clear. Brian?
Good morning,
Hi,
Palisa.
I've got a question.
Sorry, can you just give Brian, a chance?
Okay.
Please raise your hand so that I can see it on the, and I will acknowledge you.
Good morning, Palisa. I have a few questions here. The first one is about this 40% junior funding. I remember in the past, you guys assisted in finding a senior funder. Has that been completely eliminated, or do you at any way assist to find a senior funder? That's the first one. Can you just give me an answer to it, and then I'll give you the second and the third?
Okay, so at the moment, we are not assisting with finding senior funders. You would need to source your own senior funder. So we can give you, we can actually give you institutions where we think you can go approach. So you can, which are actually working or dealing with similar things, such as your National Empowerment Fund, your NHFC, your banks even now can look into funding affordable housing. So basically that can be your senior funder, any financial institution that's willing to invest in your project.
Okay, so that's
Palisa, before we move from that question, can you just elaborate for the team? I think what he was asking about is Aspari and future growth.
Yes, I understand. We used to give assistance in terms of your senior funding. For instance, with future growth, they would only take in your big projects. And then you would have your Aspari who would come in and assist with senior funding. For your, not small, but for your medium projects and small projects. So at the moment, the GEPF is not providing senior funding or assistance in terms of Aspari and future growth till the notice.
Okay, and then does this then mean they will also come in with their own terms and conditions, you know, like in terms of equity contribution? Because if one were to go, for example, to NHFC, I assume they will also tell you what percentage of equity they want on their funding. Or do you guys somehow sit down and say, okay, they will have to abide to your terms and conditions of like the minimum equity contributable, or what? Like, how would you guys work around that?
So what we've normally been doing is, let's say you submit an application to us and you intend on going to NHFC for senior funding. We would then give you a letter of support and then also show you in terms of how, if we had to approve your project, how your funding structure would be. So we would give you things like, this is how much equity you'd be required to pay. This is how much your senior funder would be required to put in, and this is how much we will. You would then take that letter of support to NHFC. And NHFC would mirror their funding terms to ours. So normally they would say to you, yes, they would give you an equity contribution that you need to pay, but it would have to mirror our funding structures, or we would have the senior funding structure. Obviously, this is to ensure that for both institutions, the project is feasible and the viability still stands.
Okay. And just another question quickly. I know your threshold in terms of debt service cover ratio is 1.3. Do you guys strictly stick to 1.3, or do you accept anything above 1? Because, you know, my understanding is that the ratio just determines by what percentage you can cover the debt. So anything beyond 1 means you can actually cover it. So if I come to you with a debt service cover ratio of 1.05, will you be willing to look at it?
So what happens is, with the debt cover ratios and stuff, we cannot compensate because we are guided by our investment policy. So what we do is we'll say for the first year, you must have a debt DCR of 1.1, and then 5, your DCR must be 1.3. So
okay,
we can't negotiate in terms of your loan to value, your DCR. We can't negotiate because we are guided by our investment policy.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Palisa, for the answers. Mokgoro, Simpue, can I ask you to attend to the questions on the chat? Because it seems like we're going to have lots of questions online. Can you just attend on the questions on the chat in the meantime? Mokgoro? Mokgoro, please go ahead, ask your question. Okay, let's go to Zipezinhle.
I need to ask, the criteria for approval of projects, do they have them published on their website?
So on our website, we've got contact details. So if, let's say, you require information, you would send myself an email or my colleague, Nontlantla.
Okay, all right. And then that's when I would get what the criteria is.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Then I would
all right,
thank you. Information you need.
Okay, thanks.
Dumiso, my apologies. I don't know what technology did to me. It's Mokgoro Morolo.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry,
Mokgoro.
I don't know what happened here. Two questions. One is, what is the link between national, local, and GEPF in terms of funding? Do you work together?
So we are an agency of the Gauteng Human Settlements. Right. Basically, we get mandates from them, so they are our big bosses.
So you don't liaise with local government and national?
Well, I wouldn't say we liaise with them in terms of our funding, but with provincial, because we work only in Gauteng, so we would work with the Gauteng Department of Human Settlements.
Okay. No, thanks. That was my question. The other question has been answered previously.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Mokgoro, for the question, and Palisa for the answers. Kanya.
Yes, Dumiso. I want to ask Palisa for the funding which you are able to contribute up to 95% for projects which are below 8 million. Must the applicant already own the land or the property, or that amount below 8 million, can it also go towards purchasing the land or the property?
Okay, maybe I think I should explain the issue of 8 million in a scenario, so we can have a better understanding. So let's say your project you've got 15 units, because that's our minimum required units. You've got 15 units and your total project cost is 15 million. And you already have 7 million, you just require the 8 million from us. That means that 7 million that you say you have will be your equity, but we can only give you that 8 million. And that's where GPF can be the only funder. You do not need a senior funder, and that you already probably the 15 million is inclusive of your land. So maybe it includes the acquisition of land as well. So you only have that 7 million. We will just give you the 8 million and you will just pay us back for that 8 million. We will be the only senior funders. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yes, but let's say the cost of the land is 5 million and all the other costs, including professionals and construction, is also, let's say, 3 million, which means the total amount is 8 million. Would you be able to assist?
Yes, we will be able to assist, but obviously there needs to be some money that you are also putting in forms of equity.
Yes.
So let's say you only need 8 million and the land is already owned by yourself and you paid 3 million, for instance, or 1 million for the land. That means your total project cost, including the land, will not be 8 million. It would probably be 9 million, and you would be bringing in that 1 million as equity.
Okay, no, that answers it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ngonyama. Dombentle?
Thank you. I just want to let our participants know that we do have the funding criteria information on our website. If you visit the website for GPF, which is www.gpf.org.za, and you can go to the resource center. Under resources, then click rental projects. We've got the different funding projects that we have. So there you will get the funding criteria. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, and it does assist to have information available publicly, and people don't necessarily have to contact the offices all the time. Tandile.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my question. Morning, everyone. The question that I have is, do you only fund projects that will eventually be rented out, or do you also fund projects where possibly that fall under the low affordable income housing, but the intention is to sell off the units for ownership of the different people who might buy into it? Do you also fund those projects?
So we do not fund projects where you're planning on just developing and selling out. You would need to rent them out up until you finish paying off your loan, because what we give, it's not a grant, it's a loan. So after paying off the GPF, then you can decide. Obviously the GPF and your senior funder, then, and you decide to sell off, then that's entirely up to you, but you would have to finish paying off the GPF.
Noted. Thank you very much.
Mukhoro, I see you came back. Do you have a second question?
I have property that is just a house at the moment, which I'm renting out, and I need to, it's big enough for me to add extra units up to 15. Do you fund that type of thing, or should it be a self-standing a new project?
No, we can get that, but obviously remember I had said in the beginning of my presentation that you would need to have all your land rights in place. So for instance, if it's currently a standalone house, the current zoning is probably residential 1.
No, it is. Fortunately for me, the residential is okay. I'm on res 4, I think it is, yeah.
So if you already have the land rights in terms of property being residential 4, then you can submit an application to us.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mukhoro. Palisa, let me ask you a few questions as a matter of just clarifying and
sorry to interrupt
sure that everyone understands.
Sorry to interrupt. You can. I'm trying to lower my hand, but I can't. So you can ignore that raised hand.
Okay, I've just lowered it. Now, Palisa, can just as a matter of clarity, you finance everywhere and anywhere. It does not matter whether it's in the township or it's in the CBD.
Well, at the moment, we are looking at everywhere, as long as the property is in Gauteng and you've got a viable market.
It's in Gauteng.
Yes, and you have a viable market.
Okay.
So that means you would need to submit a market study that actually indicates the demand for whatever development, whether it's student accommodation or affordable housing in form of rental accommodation.
Okay. Do you assist with the business plans?
So what we normally do is we don't assist in terms of the drafting of the business plan, but if you had to submit something to us, we would then ask you questions in terms of how many units. Can you please be more comprehensive? Can you submit something a bit more comprehensive? And we'll give you a guide in terms of what information we require from your business plan. So it's not a matter of just you submitting and we declining. We walk you through the process.
Okay, so if someone calls your office, you would say to them, they must come back with, call your office and say, I've got this property that I've seen, I've got land that I've seen, and I want to develop. So you would say to them, they must go and draft a business plan first.
Yes, they need to submit a business plan, a comprehensive business plan to us. That's why when we submit, when they request information via email as well, we would also give them our guidelines, which actually states in terms of your business plan, what needs to be indicated in your write-up.
Okay, that's better. And I'm asking these basic questions because obviously we're dealing with people that have got no history of land ownership and history of development. They do not have an uncle or a brother or a friend that has done development. And we do see opportunities as we walk around. And now when you spot these opportunities, then we must know how to then approach you. It's good that you guys provide a guideline in terms of how a business plan needs to be drafted, what needs to be included in the business plan. Now, when one brings a piece of land to you and say, here's a piece of land, I saw you spoke about lots of requirements there, and one of those requirements which somehow scared or worried me is the issue of bulk. And I guess there you're talking about bulk services, which is probably sewage and water and electricity and all those things. So you need that to be in place in that piece of land before you can look at it.
So yes, that's important because that you would need to get obviously from your municipality to say, let's say you want to do 50 units on your property. Whatever supply in terms of the electricity, the sewer, the water is sufficient for the number of units that you are proposing. Because you don't want to have a situation where you have 50 units, but only have water supply or electricity supply that will only cater for 25 units.
Okay. And if the municipality says there's a financial contribution, would that be part of the financing that you guys would provide?
So normally when you submit your cost estimates to us, you would include the contributions that your bulk contributions, you would include that in your elemental cost estimates.
Okay. And then lastly, obviously you're not financing commercial. And in terms of the low affordable accommodation, what exactly are we talking about here when you're saying it must be affordable accommodation?
So with affordable accommodation, we're looking at a maximum rental amount of 6,000. So you can't, it needs to cater for I think it's the income, household income of between 18 to 22,000. So it needs to be for that bracket.
Okay. But then the important piece here is that the rental must be the maximum rental that you can charge for your units. It must be 6,000.
Yes, that's the maximum you need to charge.
Okay, that's good. Simpiwe Ndlovu, you wanted to, not Simp. Was it Simpiwe Ndlovu that had the hand risen, or was it Lutuli?
Yes, sir.
It was Simpiwe.
I just wanted to say as well that, you know, like Palesa mentioned, we have a hands-on approach and we guide you from cradle to grave, where, you know, we've had some situations where clients have come to us with proposals and the project was not viable. We do not just reject. We try and explore avenues to make the project viable until we have exhausted all efforts. And that's when we will then decide to reject. So we do guide our clients through the process, you know, and we do try and assist them as much as we can.
Thank you for mentioning that, Simpiwe, because like I just said, we don't have a reference point as Black Africans. No one has done this in our circles. So we need a caring government. We need institutions of government that care. When we bring projects to them, things are not just rejected for the sake of rejecting them, but they must be rejected after thorough assessment of the individual and the project itself, and hopefully give guidelines and help in terms of how can things be done in the future, so that when I go back and look at projects again, I know exactly what you guys require. Thanks for that. Then we'll take the last two questions, being Lebu. Let's start with Lebu Khangshwale, and followed by Thandile. Lebu.
Thank you so much, Dumisa. I think really, guys, thank you so much to the GEPF team. Just one simple question is on the basis of, let's say, finding existing commercial office space and converting that into apartments or affordable, accommodation. Is that also something that you guys would actually be able to assist with the, the purchase of that vacant or office and the conversion to flats or apartments or units? Was that clear?
Yes, yeah, no, thanks.
Okay.
So to answer your question, Lebu, we do fund conversion, but we've got restrictions in terms of the purchase price. So your purchase price should be more than 50% of your total project cost. So we do look at conversions, yes, but obviously when you come to us, you need to already have, let's say if your property is commercial and does not cater for residential units, you need to have the municipal rights in place. So you need to do the rezonings and all that before you can come to us.
Okay, and then what do you mean when you can just give an example of the you're saying the purchase price must be more than 50% of the conversion cost? So sorry,
I probably put it wrong. So your total project cost must be more than 50% of your purchase price.
Okay. And then maybe before I go to Thandile, if Lebu is answered, can you do finance brown projects? Like if I see a debilitated building, I can come to you and ask you for finance. What is the criteria then?
So we do fund dilapidated buildings, but it's still the same. Let's say you can come to us. You can come to us if, let's say, your project, your building is 20. Well, let's say 20 million, and to rejuvenate and renovate and do all that costs an additional 30 million. So it still applies. Your project, your acquisition, the land acquisition must be. Your total project cost must be more than 50% of your purchase price. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Thandile.
Thank you once again for taking my question. The question I have, in your presentation under the EEPF, you mentioned something of the 2 million rand interest-free loan with the 5-year moratorium. I just wanted to understand what you meant with the 5-year moratorium.
So with the 5-year moratorium, that means you start paying off that interest free after 5 years. So you get a 5-year grace period.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Pitlana?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question is a follow-up question to the lady who asked about conversions from commercial to residential. Palisa had said that we need to have the zoning in place by the time we come to GPF. So I just want to clarify it. Does that mean, so say the building is still business 2 or business 1, 2, or 3, I'm not sure which one it would be. Are you saying I have to get it to be res 4, res 3, or res 4 before I approach GPF?
So it depends by municipalities. Some business 1 zonings allow for residential developments. So you would need to look at that specific municipal scheme to identify what rights lie or come with business 1. So if, let's say, business 1 comes with high density residential, then you don't need to apply for a res 4 or a res 3 because you already have the municipal rights in place.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Palisa. I understand.
Okay.
I think, yes, I understand. Thank you so much. I'll have to do the research specifically on that particular property with that particular municipality. Understood. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Petlana. Just a last question from my side, Palisa. In terms of the units, do you prescribe the number of units? For instance, do you say in a project, we need to have 5 bachelor flats, 1 2-bedroom units, and 3 bedroom units? Or I can come to you and say, this is my project. I want to do 2-bedroom units only and no bachelor apartments or 1-bedroom units.
So we don't indicate or specify in terms of how many 2 beds you must have or 1 bed. The only thing we specify is the number of units in terms of the minimum we can accept and the number of beds. So for student accommodation, the minimum is 50 beds. And then for your rental and EEPF, your minimum is 15 units.
Okay. Thank you. Simpiwe, is there anything that you want to say on your side or anyone from GPF as conclusion?
No, Ndumiso. I think I'm covered. I hope that the participants are also covered. What Palisa will do after this is share the presentation with yourself and you can distribute. She will also share the guidelines that we refer to. And you can share with the participants. But we'd like to say thank you again for inviting us here. And we hope that we've given sufficient responses to the questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Simpiwe. And to you, Palisa, thank you a lot for the presentation. I know it was nerve-wracking at the beginning, but you handled it well and answering the questions. And if there are any follow-up questions, people obviously they've got your office number, then they will give you a call. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I've put in, sorry, Ndumiso, so I've put in also my work number. So because we are currently working from home, so they might not be able to reach me on my land.
Okay, no, that's perfect then. Thank you. So you can pull down your presentation.
All right.
Thank you, Palisa Simpiwe. Let's create more Balwin properties.
Thank you.
Cheers to that, I agree.
Yes, yeah, we want our own big property developers.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, ladies and gents, that was GPF. And it was an informative session for me. At least we have a background. Obviously, the intention of these sessions is not for us to be specialists in what GPF does, but rather to raise awareness in terms of what is available out there. So now we're done with GPF. Let's move on to what's happening next. At this point in time, we'll be having Moses Kanyi on Saturday. Maybe the times we'll have to relook at the times there in terms of, or in fact, for all these sessions, it might not necessarily be 10 a.m., but we'll communicate on the on our social media when we have the final times for all those sessions that we're going to have. But we're going to have Siskanyi. Siskanyi will be followed up by Umastandi. Umastandi then is the people that focus on solely on the township properties. We've had ITAF, which is the company that owns Umastandi, but ITAF as a product itself, it finances inner city, and we have had them to come here to explain how they do that. But now is the most exciting one for people like myself who invest in the township. So we're having Umastandi to come and talk to us about how do they do that and how we can benefit from that. And then they will be followed by a client of theirs that we still need to find, who will tell us in terms of coming to share like what Siskanyi is going to be sharing with us next week in terms of the first-hand experience. And this worked very well because when we had ITAF, we called to Sis Juliet to come and share with us her experience in terms of how she worked with and how she found the TAF experience when she approached TAF and how it worked. And it was great to have her here to share the first-hand experience. So that's why we will be having Ukanyi plus a client of Mastandi coming to tell us the first-hand experience about how they do things. So this is what I do. Like I said in the beginning, I provide coaching and mentoring for new property investors. So if you'd like to talk to me about these services, here is my contact details. Let's arrange and have a session and discuss in terms of how we can assist you moving forward. Now, we're done for today. And I love this quote because when I came here, I knew somehow about how GPF finances, but the questions that were asked today and the answers that were provided, they gave me more information about how I can expand as a property investor, how I can take up the opportunities that are provided to us, especially by our government. That's why I found today to be so special, because it is our government who's caring for us, who says, Black people, previously disadvantaged individuals, come to me, I will be able to assist you. And they did say to us that they can give you 8 million rands. Obviously, you have to put in your 5% plus minus 5% contribution for you to be able to own the whole project. So today, I'm not the same. And when we meet next Saturday and the next few weeks, I will continue being a different individual, because no man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he is not the same man. Let's leave it like that and say thank you to you for coming through this morning, and please continue to support our campaigns by engaging us in the social media. That would mean subscribing on our YouTube, participate in discussions in Ekasi Properties group and Ekasi Properties page, and also on our Twitter account, as well as if you really want information and you don't want to leave things to chance, you then need to join our WhatsApp group and make sure that you are part of that community. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for having come through this morning. Highly appreciate your time.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks, Simpiwe. We'll chat some
Thanks,
next week.
We hope to see the applications flying in.
Definitely, they will be flying in. You'll be getting lots of calls.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ndumiso and the GPF team.
Thanks, Inigo. Thanks, Inigo. Thanks for coming through.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randu. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kanye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Thanks, Ndumiso. Bye.
Thanks, bro.
Bye. Bye-bye, Ndumiso.
Bye-bye.
Can I ask a question, Ndumiso, with regards to your WhatsApp group? You said it's full, so you're not accepting any further people.
Yeah, but people leave every day. So if you send me a WhatsApp now and you ask me to join, I'll send you the link. Then you'll probably be lucky to get a space.
Okay, I've sent the message. Thank you.
But still send it anyway. Maybe I'll create a new WhatsApp group or I'll create a broadcast list.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the session. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Why didn't you put Kanye's picture on that slide, Ndumiso?
Why didn't I put it?
Yes.
I want it to be a surprise.
Otherwise, I'm gonna send you the one that we have, the three of us.
Then Kanye is gonna fight with you, Gutu, and I always take his limelight.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Woodley. Come, ladies and gents, if you're still here, please have a good weekend. Let's see, Azwi, blessings, Komoto, Ntumi, Onke, Pandaro, Papama, Pitlane, are you guys still here? I want to end the call. Ladies and gents, I'm ending the call. If you want to have a chat with me, you probably have my number, so you can contact me there. Thank you for coming through.